Thank you for joining us tonight. Like I was saying before we got started, I've got some good articles this evening. And with us tonight is the whole crew. We got Dan, Alex, Dave, and Blunty. Um, so welcome everybody. Let me get my screen shared correctly. Find the right one.
Ooh, I gotta make everybody mad in the chat.
Uh-oh. Yeah, get everybody. Especially Alex. All right,
There we go.
so I thought this was really cool. Apparently, FPV has now made it. There's an article about FPV racing, and it's specifically the Drone Racing League in the New York Times, um, which is pretty cool. It focuses on Drone Racing League, Min Chan Kim, and Alex Vanover. It is a significantly long article, so I am not going to cover it beyond the fact that it exists, and I recommend it's a decent read. But holy cow, is it long? So I think I'd probably take up the whole hour if we covered this. But I posted the link down there in the chat, so feel free to give it a read. They talk about Min Chan and calling him Mr. Kim and Alex Mr. Vanover. And go through some of the experiences in DRL and their practices, their friends, and how they got involved, and some of the other things they do, like filming for music videos, motion pictures, that kind of stuff. So, pretty cool. But yeah, I'm not gonna go
Yeah, I'd agree
super in
with
depth.
Meat. When you share those videos of him flying, people think it's fake.
Oh
And
yeah.
every time you
And
see
it's
it on
sped up.
like Reddit, yeah, oh that's sped up. That's like 3 times normal speed. Like, no, no, it's not.
No,
I've
it's
seen it
actually not.
live.
Alex can attest.
Even FPV pilots would say it's sped up, but
Mhm.
other people are
Yeah.
just can't. It just doesn't compute. It doesn't work in their brain that it goes that fast.
No, when I first saw some of his DVR footage on YouTube, I was just blown away. I mean, I couldn't even come close to the reflexes that kid's got. So more props to him, or any of those. I mean, Alex would blow me out of the water. So I mean, not saying Alex is slow. I'm just saying he is much better than I am. All right. So next is an article, and this is not. This is an article that covers FAA grants a nationwide waiver to Percepto for automated BV lost drone missions. So the FAA has granted a nationwide waiver for beyond visual line of sight flights to a drone in a box solution provider for the first time ever. The recipient of this waiver is Israel-based Percepto, whose autonomous inspection platform AIM was named one of Time Magazine's 100 best inventions of 2021. The Percepto system can now be operated remotely at qualifying sites across the UAS from the US. Wow, from day one. The biggest beneficiaries of the FAA's decisions are expected to be electric utilities, oil and gas companies, solar power stations, and mining sites that use drones to detect infrastructure problems. They will no longer have to endure the long wait time it takes to secure site specific BV loss approvals from the FAA. So this is pretty cool. It's streamlining the ability to uh, get a drone up in the air, do inspections without having to, sit through the mud slogging of the FAA's waiver approval process, which can take uh, up to 90 days, right, Alex?
Month.
Uh,
Yep.
BV
so,
loss.
90
You can,
days is
you
the
can
estimated minimum, but depends on the waiver. It could be much
a
longer.
month, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
So Percepto is one of 6 drone manufacturers that were selected by the FAA to sit on a committee looking at rules for BV loss operations last year. Um, the company co-founder and CCO, Ariel Avatan, is quick to stress that Percepto makes it easier for governments and businesses to implement automated drone operations and unleash the true potential of AI-powered inspections. So let's see. Meat says that's totally not an evil name. And one thing I've noticed repeatedly on these more polished platforms is they all seem very fragile. For a drone meant for on-site use by unskilled people, there seems to be like there's a lot of room for ruggedization. I would agree with that. We're still using uh, thermoplastics here and gummies to isolate the camera. It seems a little
Well, to get any
definitely
approval
fragile.
from the FAA, they had to design this drone 10 years ago. So it's ancient
Yep.
tech.
You're not wrong. So pretty cool. And I started exploring this FAA granting nationwide waivers. This is maybe the first, but it's one of several that have happened recently. So there's a couple other companies as well as some areas that have been granted immediate use authorization. They don't have to apply for waivers, that kind of thing. So pretty interesting. I apologize. I did not post a link to that article. All right. And also from Drone DJ, if you don't know them, they're a really good site for keeping up to date on the news. I do appreciate them and their work. We use them often. We're not affiliated. I just like them.
They do all your hard work for you by posting all these
Sometimes,
articles.
yes. Sometimes, yes. But I like to get in the weeds with some of this stuff too. But DJI. So we've covered some of the issues DJI has had with the U.S. government. They've been put on the official Department of Defense blacklist for having close ties to China's military. And they have come out with a statement basically saying we are not a Chinese military company. And included in the article is their response. They basically go through and say their DJI is not a military company in China, the United States, or anywhere else. We stand ready to formally challenge our inclusion on the list. They are aware of various reports of our drones being modified with attachments that can carry weapons on them. We need to point out we cannot influence how our drones are being used once they leave our control. More importantly, we have never enabled these uses or knowingly allowed modifications to weaponize our products. We take regulatory compliance very seriously, and we have emphasized to our distribution network that they must block any sale or maintenance to customers that may try and use our drones to cause harm. Part of this, you can go on to read the rest of the article. It kind of skirts some of the issues of what's happening with the data that's collected
Yeah, I was gonna
by
say
DJI
people aren't
drones.
so worried that they're a military company, that they're a spying company.
Exactly. So this kind of skirts some of that, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, fully on them if they want to challenge that. I mean, if I ran a company, I would want to. Oh, there goes Dave. See, I told you, wait 5 minutes.
And he'll be right back.
So I mean, I welcome them to challenge that. If I ran a company, I would challenge that as well. But it's definitely it feels like it's skirting that issue a little bit.
I mean, at the end of the day, the reason these are being listed like this is because they're in China, like, and they're
Exactly.
not approved. Like, so it doesn't matter what they say. It doesn't matter any statements they make. It doesn't matter how they feel or what their evidence is or anything they say. They're going
Right.
to be considered a Chinese military company because of what they do. Like,
Exactly.
I mean, that's just unfortunate, but that's true. I mean, no matter what they're doing, whether they're doing anything bad or not, the U.S. government feels like the Chinese government can come to them and say, "Give us your information and do this now," and they will do it. And that means they can't be, they can't be a non-Chinese military company,
Right.
drone company,
Totally
so.
agree. And I think the hard part also is that the amount of electronics that are used in drones or any, I mean, computers,
Oh,
electronics, all that stuff, it's all sourced from China. I mean, they're the
yeah.
world's biggest area. So, I mean, to single out, them specifically makes me wonder what's going to happen towards, in the near future in
Well,
relation to getting, the components necessary. So,
yeah, I'll say I think that list now is I think it's like 30 companies or something.
I
Uh,
believe it's now. It
maybe
says
even
on
more.
there. Yeah, it is. It's like
It's
50 or 60 now.
Yeah, it's a lot. So like, yeah, I don't know. I would expect to see any major tech producers like slowly show up on this list if they're producing stuff in China. And I think that the difference is like I don't, individual components and stuff. We've seen bans from like, if you're working for like the national parks or if you're working for the U.S. government,
Yeah.
you can't, and you're building a drone, you can't use those components in a drone. Like they have to be sourced from places that are not like
Right.
those kind of places. So I think they're just like trying to skirt it as much as they can, and different factors, like through different executive orders and then through these tranches and stuff, through these programs. I would expect that anything Chinese will at some point or another get shut down if it can be by the U.S. government at this point, because that's how they've been operating. Like slowly but surely, they've just been like on the chopping block, cutting through that kind of stuff. And this took a while to get to us, but eventually it did happen. We heard about it back in like a year or two ago, and then they finally got added. So.
Right. So definitely interesting. All right. I'm gonna say, well, no, go ahead and do this. So, this was a report that was published. Well, it wasn't published. It was submitted back in, I believe, in July. On It was the FAA's Assure Center of Excellence Advanced Materials and Processes Survey for Advanced Air Mobility and Unmanned Aircraft Systems. So, if you scroll down to right here on the article, you can get a link to the PDF. It's a couple hundred pages long, where they cover the different use of materials for advanced air mobility and UAS. Uh, the hard part for me is they covered, the materials, what companies are using them, why they're using them, different formats, whether it's composites or carbon fibers, thermoplastics, and the different processes like additive manufacturing, which would essentially be 3D printing, and their uses. The thing that I wish this report had covered was, um, what's the right word I'm looking for, David? The crash ratings or energy impartment during a crash kind of studies. Doesn't have any of that, which is where we start getting into the 250-gram limit and why that's obscenely stupid, and that kind of stuff. So, it doesn't get into any of that, but if you're interested in some of the materials, and you feel like reading through a large technical document, give it a scan. Um, I went through and just super scanned it, and it's a lot of technical stuff, a lot of processes, how things are made, kind of stories. So, all right, this is kind of fun. So, this is an edible drone.
I was just gonna say that looks like it's
Ooh,
made out of food or
I
crackers
want
or
to eat it.
cookies or something. So
So
do
this
you
is
fly it to somebody that's hungry and then they eat it or what?
Well, essentially, yeah. So it can be like a search and rescue kind of tool, right? So
Oh,
if you're out and about and you get stranded and you call for help and search and rescue is going to take a little while to get to you, they can send you a little drone with a snack on it. So
but what about water? Because that looks like it's going to dehydrate me.
you're not wrong. So, it says, it's a nightmare scenario. You're on an ambitious mountain hike when you get lost, injured, or stranded. The good news is help is finally on the way, but the bad news is it's going to take time to reach you and you're out of food. That's when a buzzing drone comes in, flying for a landing. Not only do you get the snacks, medicine, or water it's carrying, you can eat the wings to tide you over until the rescue team
That
arrives.
would be kind of a fun long-range drone type project to pilot this
Mhm.
via FPV and see how close you can get it and crash into near somebody who needs help.
So, this is a team with the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology has developed a prototype edible drone. The munchable machine is part of a broader project called RoboFood. RoboFood is about investigating edible robots for humans and animals, as well as foods that behave like robots. Um,
Foods that behave like robots. That's a great quote.
I know. So the design uses some familiar looking airplane like components, but the big difference is that the fixed wing is made from rice cakes and gelatin that together pack 300 calories. It tastes like a crunchy Rice Crisp cookie with a little touch of raw gelatin. If you're stranded in Hungary, it would probably be delicious. So,
Especially if you had a nice cool stream to dip them in.
Right? So it says to make the wings, the researchers trimmed up round rice cakes using a laser cutter and glued them together with gelatin to create a wing structure that could hold up to flight. The rice is strong but lightweight and still reasonably nutritious. The drone would be a one-way proposition, but the partially edible nature means there wouldn't be a lot of debris left behind. So pretty cool.
Does it increase the amount of birds that go to attack it? And what if the birds eat
eat the wings before you get there?
Exactly.
Or
just take it out of the sky, bring it to their nest, have a little snack for a while.
It's a possibility.
The airplane would then have to have like flares that shoot out that are for the birds to follow, little bits of seed or something.
There you go.
Distract them.
So hey, there's a Peter Schriepel. Yeah, there you go. RC airplane made of food. There you go. So this is fun. So, but yeah, I mean, it might help. Alex, is that Geneva has shut down its eagles attacking drones as a counter UAS method. So, you know, I mean, at least you won't have to deal with them.
But still, wild animals. Never know. Might see food flying in the sky and be like, I'm hungry and want a snack.
Right. All right. So next up is article from Reuters. Okay, let me. So drone taxi takes first spin in air traffic near Paris. An electric helicopter. Why are they calling it a helicopter? An electric helicopter with multiple rotors.
So not a helicopter at all.
Oh,
I mean, can it auto rotate? Because that's the only reason I would think. I mean, if it can't auto rotate, then no.
So this is the aircraft, and so the Volocopter test aircraft, which resembles a large drone with 8 rotors, took off with a passenger on board from. I'm not even going to try and pronounce this. Yes, I am. Pontoise. Yeah, okay. Airfield outside Paris, and briefly circled around while other aircraft were in the vicinity. German company Volocopter Dirk Hoch said that in the next 18 months it will prepare its craft for certification. He hopes to launch short commercial flights by 2024 when Paris holds the Summer Olympic Games. Now, I didn't really pick this article because air taxi, cool, whatever. My concern is why? I mean, of all the different designs for an air taxi, are we just taking the actual cabin area of a helicopter and then jamming a bunch of rotors on top of it? I mean, it's a multi-rotor, so it has to tilt to move forward. Now, wouldn't like a sphere be better with like maybe rotating seats to adjust for the tilt or stuff like that? Like, I mean, it's a helicopter with 8 rotors on it. I mean, literally it is. So they're not wrong.
I mean, we've seen that basically, I think, with a lot of the current designs. I think it'll be a while before we see anything much more advanced, because it's a lot easier to do this, and it's also probably a lot more like consumer facing. Like, it's easier for a consumer to be like okay with a helicopter cabin than it is for like some rotating sphere thing, They're like, I don't want to get in that.
I mean, I would. I mean, come on, it's a bubble with propellers on top of it.
Yeah.
Meat says that's a funky looking drone. At least it's got to be more than 4 rotors. I was wondering about the egg too. It's not even aerodynamically correct for the angle it'll fly at. Very accurate. So hey, at least I'm in this. It meets with me here. So,
well, are the motors being pitched themselves, or is it or are they fixed?
So there's a video of it flying here. The one thing I was a little no, it's actually tilting.
Okay, yeah.
The whole aircraft is tilting. So it's
a helicopter tilts too, right? Like, I mean,
yeah, they do.
So you're basing it off of
But a helicopter
I feel like
rotor also
have one pilot and one passenger. You can buy the ticket.
Yeah,
and you can fly
they definitely
directly
just took the
from
helicopter
the
cockpit,
station.
chopped the tail off, and attached it to these
Yeah.
propellers.
As soon as we have the
Yeah.
facts. First, we need to know
So
how long
I don't
this
know.
will
It's
take, and
it's
at the end,
it's a little
we can
interesting.
always take a
So they are one of many different air taxi companies. I believe Archer is pushing theirs, and they are setting up shop, I believe, outside of Georgia. And there's a couple others, all with different designs, but they're all fairly close to this, really. But some of them have tilting rotors, more like an Osprey. But yeah, pretty unique. All right. Okay, so we've got Amazon's new delivery drone slated to start deliveries this year. Hopefully, they've put the multitude of crashes behind them at this point. But this is the uh, Mark 27. So we've gone through 20 revisions, and this is version 2 of the Mark 27. So the drone, so the latest drone model will drop packages from 12 feet in the air. No parachute. It's just going to drop them. If the drone encounters another aircraft when it's flying, it will fly around the other aircraft. When it gets to its delivery location and your dog runs underneath the drone, we won't deliver the package. So Hendrickson gave CNBC a first look at the drone, the Mark 27-2, on Thursday. She said it will start making deliveries in Lockford, California, and College Station, Texas, by the end of 2022. Some residents in the small rural town of Lockford have expressed concerns about privacy and safety. Amazon insists the drones are safe. We like to refer to the drone as being independently safe, which means that it has the power to make the decision. It saw something that had a heat signature underneath the drone and was able to not deliver a package and return back to the station. But the drones do have an operator in command that is overseeing the entire airspace.
So, if you really want to mess with your neighbors who are getting drone deliveries, like throw a hot water bottle in their backyard and they won't get what they're expecting. Nice.
Well, I'm wondering with those people who are expressing security concerns or privacy concerns, how many of them have an Echo Dot or an Alexa in their
Right.
house?
It's probably true, right? So, I mean, but yeah, so the drone is 5.5 feet in diameter, weighs 80 pounds, and it can only carry packages weighing less than 5 pounds.
We all know that College Station is the home of Texas A&M, right? So
Yeah.
what's going on there?
I just want to point out that this is the first company who's gotten 5 pounds and like 7 kilometer round or 7 mile round trip. This is what Amazon had been promising for years, and they had basically died out, and then they still released this drone, which I think is pretty interesting because basically everyone is doing last mile, everyone is doing smaller packages, everyone is doing different drone designs, and it's because they don't think this is feasible for long term. So it'll be interesting to see because Amazon also announced the MK30, which is going to be a bigger version of the MK27 too, which will deliver even bigger packages and go longer ranges. So like, I don't know if they can achieve this again, it'll be something different than everybody else was able to do. And
Right. I think you're
like,
on a good financial point because this is a company that just lost $1 trillion in market
Yeah.
capitalization, and it's undergoing layoffs, not just
10,000
in
employees.
the white collar area, but across the board.
I mean, I've not seen any financials that show anything has been profitable yet for drone delivery. You know, I think like because it's going to need to be expandable. It's going to need to be like there's just an economy of scale that needs to come in that isn't there, right? And then it needs to be proven that that economy of scale works. And like I don't know, maybe it will for Amazon, but it seems unlikely to me that you're going to be able to deliver 5 to 10 pound packages at extended ranges, like and make money on it versus people in trucks for many, many, many years. But I could be wrong, and it'll be interesting to see how they do.
I mean, the infrastructure to me seems kind of obtuse, right? So depending on how they set this up, is it, does it have to make a round trip per package, or does it go one
Yes.
direction, drops a package, and then stops close by, picks up another package, goes the other direction, that kind of thing? I mean, that would
Yeah, I
seem like
mean,
a more efficient way to do things, right?
it depends on. I guess it depends on customer locations. But my understanding of it was to try to get out to customers who are like at the edge of that range. And so I don't know if there would be another Amazon facility at the at that
At the
location.
other
Like I
end,
think that
right?
Yeah, and if they're trying to deliver a 5-pound package, you've got one, and you can't choose which one to drop. You're dropping it all, like I think,
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see, yeah, again how it goes. I kind of hope it works, but the other thing we're going to see, they mentioned it in the MK30 stuff, but we're just going to see more noise and bigger drones in the air. And that'll be interesting to see too how customer perception is, because we've already seen a bunch of complaints from places where they've got these rolled out from different companies where people are complaining about noise. And they're like, I don't want to hear these rah across my house all the time. And it's just going to be more and more rah all the time. And people are going to be on the news, the local news talking about it. And
Yeah.
like I don't know, it'll be again interesting to see how all this kind of rolls out as consumers start to learn about all this. And like, yeah, there's a lot of pieces to this puzzle that have to work for this all to
Yeah.
work out.
Yeah, the noise is a whole area of study, because we could say, well, heck, a lawnmower is 120 decibels. Come on, you hear a little buzz above you, but it's the frequency of this thing that really disturbs people.
It's like
It's
people
also
are not so bothered by lawnmowers, but leaf blowers is a whole different story.
Yeah, because they're higher
There you
pitched,
go.
right?
true.
So
And it's also
Right.
it's also an understanding of like being used to that noise, I think, too. Like
Yeah.
if you're all the time hearing a leaf blower every Monday when you walk to work, you get less annoyed, I think, by the leaf blower you hear all the time because you're just used to hearing it. It doesn't
Right.
piss you off because you're like, that thing again. But until that happens with drones, I think there's going to be a long period where people are just mad and annoyed at those sounds before they get used to that happening.
I mean, one of the things that I would like to see some noise analysis, even when it comes to the air taxis that we talked about earlier. The video shows it flying and you can slightly hear it, but I want to know how loud that thing is in comparison to a helicopter, to an airplane, that kind of
Sure.
thing. And because that's going to be the biggest issue with public acceptance of this kind of stuff, right? Is going to
Yeah.
be that intrusion. So
Yeah. And the BV Lost Ark, this was a huge, this part of the environmental segment was huge, and they brought in a group of folks from the FAA who spend a lot of time working with airports on noise pollution, noise complaints, and so there's in EPA is the whole area, and found some interesting scholar papers around the world of making the frequency of being a problem for people, as well as research into propellers and bigger motors, slow the props down, change the aerodynamics of the motors or the prop. So this is an important part.
And of course, the thing that we're all extremely worried about is that when local governments or the FAA does a one-size-fits-all regulation and they start saying, oh, drones can only take off and land from these locations. Oh, and by drones we mean everything from your tiny whoop to something carrying people can now only fly in specific places because of the noise. And then all of a sudden we can't fly where we want to.
The FAA would never consider one size fits all.
Right.
Dripping in sarcasm.
I just want to. I always find parallels to cannabis. One of them here is about a year and a half into cannabis legislation, we got a new ordinance for smell. And then it was suddenly a rule, a very arbitrary BS rule about smell from a reasonable distance to the road. And it was basically up to a discretion of the inspectors when they came out. If they could smell cannabis of your building and they could track it to your building, you could get fined. And like,
Oh
I
my goodness.
definitely feel like this could be a similar thing where like how do you judge the decibel rating versus the frequency versus all the different situations? And then you're also in different environments, so you're comparing an urban to a rural environment. And like you said, I'm sure there's a lot of studies on this from different things, but airports are where airports are, right? And like, so there's kind of a difference between that and like, hey, I'm delivering over entire neighborhoods or cities. Like, I don't know. Yeah, it'll be super interesting to see.
Pascals over time, so it's a pressure impulse. So decibels are a passe whether a way to measure this.
All right.
So-
So to answer your question, Meat, it's not a graphic. So the thing hovers and it does it like Yukon said, it literally poops out the package.
Which, like others have pointed out, isn't that different from package delivery now when they throw it at your door anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
So if two neighbors order something that are both 2.5 pounds each,
No, it only
will
does
it
one
just deliver it below?
one
Will it
package.
deliver what? No, but will it deliver one package for both of them
No.
on the property line?
I don't think so. It's like start fighting over your packages.
Because why
mean,
why send the drone out twice to the same spot? when you could just
Yeah.
do that.
The new Amazon double delivery service. If you sign up for this, you pay $1 less, and then you might get double delivery with your neighbor, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Only if you have a deed agreement.
Yeah.
Amazon, the
Oh.
only company that poops out your packages. All right, sorry. New motto.
It's better. I mean, Walmart chucks them. I don't know if
They
you've seen those Walmart. It's literally just like throws it out of the plane, and there's like a parachute that does not work, and it like falls and slams in the ground. You see the little parachute fluttering, and it's just like you hear thunk on the ground.
Yeah, zipline. And earlier somebody said zipline. Yeah, that were demonstrated scale with medical deliveries in Africa, and Zipline is one of the companies that Walmart uses, and they do use the parachute. They use a fixed wing system, however, as opposed to a multi-rotor. So, all right. So, this is from Hackaday. This is interesting. So, let me share the article. All right, so clever control loop makes a spinning drone fault tolerant. So most multi-rotor aircraft are about as aerodynamic as a brick. I'm pretty sure we can all kind of attest to that. Unless all its motors are turning and the control electronics are doing their thing, most UAVs are quickly destined to become unmanned ground vehicles, in generally spectacular fashion. But by switching up things a bit, it's possible to make a multi-rotor drone that keeps on flying even without 2/3 of its motors running. So this is Nick Rim, his spinning drone, which basically eschews a rigid airframe for a set of 3 airfoils joined to a central hub. The collective pitch of the blades can be controlled via a servo in the hub, and the whole thing can be made to rotate and provide lift thanks to the thrust of the tip-mounted motors and props. We've seen Nick manage to get this contraption airborne, and hovering is pretty straightforward. The video below, which I'm not going to go into, covers the next step: getting pitch, roll, and yaw control over the spinning blades of doom. The problem isn't trivial. First, Nick had to decide what the front of the spinning aircraft even means. Through the clever use of LED strips mounted to the airfoils and some point of view magic, he was able to visually indicate a reference axis. From there, he was able to come up with a scheme to vary the power of each motor as it moves relative to the reference axis, modulating it in either a sine or cosine function to achieve roll and pitch control. This basically imitates the cyclic pitch of a control of a classic helicopter, a sort of virtual swash plate. The whole thing spins at about 250 rotations per minute, but he can kill up to one or two of the motors, and it's still controllable enough for a bumpy but safe landing. So a little bit of over engineering for the sake of learning, I imagine, but pretty unique.
He had to be the only one on his block. You know, had to be different.
I think I'll be interested to see if there are any applications for this, because I think like he shows like the loitering efficiency is like 3 times what a normal drone would be.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it has to spin to loiter at that efficiency. So the question is like, what can you do loitering spinning like that's useful? Like, are there situations where that would be useful? And then you could fly in forward flight with the wings, and you get pretty efficient forward flight as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like one thing I was thinking about was LiDAR scanning, right? Because you've got to spin anyway
you
for
gotta
LiDAR.
spin it anyway, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so maybe there's like maybe while you're doing LiDAR spinning, it's more efficient to do. I don't know, stuff like that. But I wonder if there are like applications where this could actually be useful,
It could be
like
like
Wi-Fi beacons,
right,
maybe?
a cell phone repeater, Wi-Fi repeater or something.
Yeah, like in a hurricane or something, and you had to like just have it sit there or something.
Or,
Post
or even
aftermath.
loiter surveillance. Undo the spin
Well,
on the ground.
yeah, it's hard to do surveillance if your camera's spinning, but you could probably correct for
Just
that.
get a fast gimbal that operates the opposite direction, right?
Yeah, maybe
Well,
some
I
kind of
think
like
the
gimbal with a
center
bearing.
isn't there a center part that does stay still, or is
The whole
or
thing
is there
spins.
nothing? The whole thing.
Currently,
But you could probably
currently the whole
design.
thing spins.
You could design something to counter rotate.
All right, let's see if the video will play here.
This weird-looking drone is about to have a motor.
We're getting your laggy video like we normally do.
Ah, super.
Which is fine.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, feel free to check it out in the article.
Yeah.
One test I want to see of that thing is with it in forward flight, how long it takes to react with a motor outage, like one of the motors go out, and in forward flight to then go back into hovering with the spinning.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Right.
that'd be a cool test to see
Like
how
a
that works.
Like a fail-safe
Hmm
sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. Let's see. And last article I've got, and thanks for bearing with me through all of these. So, a passenger plane in the UK is saying it came within 10 feet of crashing into a drone in a near miss at 16,000 feet. So it says EasyJet flight had a near miss with an unidentified flying object. The pilot said the plane missed the unmanned flying object by around 10 feet. A report by the UK APROX board said the object was likely a drone. Couldn't have been a bag.
Likely, huh?
So let's see. 16,000 feet, cruising velocity 400 to 500 knots per hour, and single loop. Oh yeah, that was a drone.
5 second look at it, right? So the pilot of the Airbus A320, which was flying from London Gatwick to Rhodes in Greece, described the object as black and cylindrical and said it passed within 10 feet of the aircraft per the report released last week. The board rated the incident as Category A, meaning there was a risk of collision, and said that the object was likely to be a drone. In the board's opinion, the reported altitude and or description of the object were sufficient to indicate that it could have been a drone. The National Air Traffic Service's investigation report said the pilot first reported the incident over radio during the flight. Going through FL 160, we just very nearly just hit a drone. We're talking less than 10 feet. We don't think we hit it. There was a bit of a thud. We'll come back to you. After landing the flight, the pilot confirmed the plane had not made contact with the drone, and the thud likely came from the cabin, per the report.
What? This is just a nothing article. Why even call it a drone if and just say it's unidentified until it's identified?
Right?
UFO.
And unless
It is
you're
a drone,
trying to
though.
make a
That's what
point
that's-
that you're anti-drone.
Yeah,
That's how they
exactly.
think.
Nah,
I feel like that's how they think about it. It's like everything that they don't know is a drone. You know.
Well, Gatwick
They didn't want-
is traumatized, so I mean,
They didn't want to do a write-up about that thud in the cockpit of an A320.
Probably the co-pilot
Must
just
have-
passing
must
out.
Must have been a drone. Who else was in this flight deck?
All right.
Yeah,
So
saying someone in the chat saying it was a goose. Yeah, there was a video I just saw of a airplane sucking in 3 geese. I think that was just up here, like in Grand Forks, North Dakota, or somewhere in Minnesota, North Dakota area. Yeah, they like zoomed in on it, and all of a sudden, this big military airplane had just sucked 3 geese right through its engines and kept flying. No big deal.
Mm-hmm.
all right, that's about all I
This
have for articles tonight. I do want to say, we've all heard about it at this point, the collision at the air show in Fort Worth. Obviously, that was tragic. So our hearts go out to the families of those folks, but definitely a bad deal. I don't want to play the video. It's pretty bad. I'm sure most people have seen it at this point, but yeah. So do want to mention that. So yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I think it's right to mention that the commemorative Air Force been out of the south of the United States for decades. They're an amazing group of pilots and mechanics.
mhm.
Most of them retired military. Chance to see them in Texas, and saw a 4U Corsair flying a P-51 Mustang, many AT-6 Texans, P-38, as well as a B-17, and so an amazing group of people, and really a sad loss of 6 lives.
And it does point out how important situational awareness is. And if you're flying something with huge blind spots, like you can literally not see a gigantic airplane because that's how, you're flying something with a wing there, and it's blocking such a big part of the sky, you can't see another gigantic airplane.
Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to leave it at that. So, Dave, what do you got for us tonight?
Things are cranking. We've got we're participating in TG15, which I was a little incredulous about, but I think it's going to be great.
And what's TG15? There's the two new ones are 14 and 15, right?
Correct. And so this is the AAAC, or the Advanced Aviation Advisory Committee Tasking Group 15, which has to do with ramping up drone in a sub industry or in an industry. How do you work with the public or with the local community? And so we've a good discussion about, well, we should also be worried about internal communities. And so the one of the co-chairs, Mike Leo, is from FDNY, and as he said, FDNY is an 11,000 person fire department. So when you have a 17 full-time drone pilots, you need to have good awareness for other firefighters of what you're doing. So the community is within your own community, as well as the general public that need to be educated and understand that this is a positive thing, as well as the community of other fire departments across the country. So it's this whole group is gaining momentum, and it could be really good. And they are incorporating recreational as one of the industries that want to be considered in terms of how do you ramp up and how do you get that notion of drones for good as well as education. And so that one's
a tasking group that's going to talk about recreational drone operations. What?
Yeah, and the person who brought it up is Ryan Burgess, the CEO of Google Wing. So our thanks to James for starting that off for us, and really appreciate that. TG15 starts on TG14 starts on 11/29 or 29 November, and that's about what can industry do to accelerate the promulgation of BVLOS regulations. So that's that we'll see where that goes. I think that one could be very, very productive. As we've said, Dan and I participated in the BVLOS ARC. There was a long section about this is what could be done to get BVLOS going quickly. So I'm sure that we will focus on that. We're also
so this reminds me of, like, if you're in a meeting and you make a suggestion, like, hey, what if somebody did this? Hey, thanks for volunteering for doing what you just suggested needs to get done. So the BVLOS ARC suggested, here's some things that need to be done. Now they've been volunteered by the FAA to do it.
Yeah. Yes. I have had that been the recipient of that action item. Drone safety team. We've finished the narrative report and done a presentation, and so this is on how do we alter or improve the UAS ASRS, Unmanned Aerial Systems, Aviation Safety Reporting System. So there is a voluntary incident reporting system for manned or crewed aircraft, ASRS, and there is a UAS counterpart, or UAS ASRS, for great naming purposes, run by NASA, paid for by the FAA. So the drone safety team, I led a ad hoc committee to make some recommendations, and that's wrapping up. Let's see what else we got cooking. Did you want to mention AMA getting their CBO?
I think people are wondering about it. They've heard that maybe the AMA has become the first CBO, and they're wondering where we are at with our application.
Yeah, have not heard a word.
Did you check your spam folder, Dave?
I did. I honestly did. I did check my spam folder, junk mail. I did, just in case. But yeah, we submitted. We were number 2. AMA was number 1, and they have probably 10 or 11 documents that span their safety guidelines. So it's pretty extensive, the various the amount of guidelines that they have signed up and committed their members and their member chartered clubs to put in place and to police. So that's got us a bit disturbed reading the advisory circular 91-57C.
And people
Yeah,
are saying, "Oh,
there's
say, so we're next, right?" Well, we have no idea. I would just assume the
yeah.
FAA has a small team of people working on this, and it sort of probably
Mhm.
depends who's assigned to each CBO's application and how many guidelines they have to look at and who they have to consult with and lots of things.
That would be my bet as well.
What stands out in their guidelines, in the AMAs or in
And the
the
AMA
FAA?
guidelines, one of the 5 separate documents on FPV. It also that they have signed up for that you have to have lights, visibility lights to fly at night. Can be seen for 3 statute miles. So a number of the elements that the AC 51, 57C put forward, which were really making recreational a mini Part 107, are absolutely in the AMA safety guidelines,
Yeah, I'm
and
sure
that's
your tiny
just
whoop
disturbing.
or a little toothpick will love to have a 3 nautical mile LED flashing on it and fly great when you put
Mm-hmm.
that on there.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the important part about that, guys, is that the regulations for recreational state nothing of requiring any kind of lights on recreational aircraft. That is strictly a Part 107 regulation.
Mhm.
And so the fact that in order to become a CBO, that we're basically being asked by the FAA to regulate via advisory circular is gross and obtuse. So it's a little bit ridiculous. There's a lot of stuff in there that we're just like not so
So
sure about this.
when we get our response, I anticipate that our response will not be a way to go if PVFC you're in. I anticipate the response at least one pass will be to add a little more material to this safety guidelines, and we'll take it apart and see what's reasonable and what's not reasonable, and we'll try to have a common sense approach to it. I've needed
Yeah,
to walk away from this for about a day because I was pretty incensed with some of what's going on.
you're not the only one.
Free that operates like 107 seems now. Yeah, yeah,
Is there a
yeah.
term
Well,
for like what you call? I don't know if there's actually a term. It feels like there should be for like roundabout legislation, where like where they're basically like asking us to make rules that they don't want to make. Like I feel
yeah,
like there's got to be like a term for that.
yeah.
Overreach?
The end
Well,
run. Yeah,
yeah,
and
And
end run. There
run.
you
yeah,
go. That's a good way to put it.
yeah.
But
And
that's what it
Two
feels
joints.
like. Is
Yeah.
like, hey, we don't want to make we don't want to do this stuff. So instead, we're going to like suggest very heavily over and over again through documents and suggestions that you should make sure that you do these
Right.
rules.
So like
You know?
Right.
mafia
And
tactics,
it's
protection
so
money.
the
Yeah.
part of the rules, the part of the rule that really incenses me is they are pressing on the CBO being responsible for enforcement. And so not only are they looking for an extension of 44809, the recreational exception to Part 107, but they're also asking us, so it's not just make up additional rules off the cuff. They're looking for the CBO to be responsible for enforcement as
Well,
well.
it starts to make
Um,
sense if you think about it as a CBO is an organization that runs a FRIA. Everybody flies their drones and aircraft at this FRIA with the guidance of employees of the CBO. So if there's an accident there, there's an employee of the CBO there that you report it to and all that kind of stuff. Like, right?
But how
It's
does
not at all like what we imagine a CBO as. We've got people all spread out through the country flying in their backyards.
Mhm. All
mm,
right.
It's
I
there's
mean,
also
and
not
well,
how frees were written up or presented either. And it's
yeah,
like, I mean, there's just a whole bunch of problems there, right? Because it's two different
yes.
sides of like the way, like, you can't have, I don't know. Hey, you've got one side saying this, and then the other side doesn't present that as being the requirement at all. So, I don't know. It's difficult.
well, and the
Yeah.
difference is generational too. So I mean, you've got the AMA, and their idea of a CBO is exactly what Dan stated, right? It's a bunch of people at a field, but the new generation of CBO is kind of like remote work, right? It's everybody everywhere. And so, we're a group of people that fly everywhere and not just in a field. So
Yeah,
it doesn't
and
work the
the
same way.
and the issue is that we're about close on to 10 times the size of the AMA population. So this is so for a a set of old white guys that are flying at fixed flying fields that are 1/10 the size of recreational UAS. It can work, but even the enforcement part is really tricky. I mean, that's not doable. And I'm an AMA member. I fly at 3 different clubs. Enforcement not possible.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
there's
Not
and
unless you're unless it's
Unless the
an
FAA pays me to enforce.
egregious unless it's egregious flying your
Right.
Intentionally flying your model airplane into someone's car.
Right. But
I'm
I
sure
mean,
that's
that's
happened before.
I've no accidentally it's happened at races.
well,
Not
I mean,
my
that's the
car.
thing though. It's like,
But
I
that's what
mean,
insurance is for.
here's the end all be all, right? Is that, we can FPV has always been relatively self-policing, right? Don't do stupid stuff, don't hurt people, that kind of thing. And because we don't
On the
want
pits, you get a hammer.
we don't want things that happen to damage the reputation and cause more regulation. And I mean, that's the great fear, right? So, we've always been relatively self-policing, and people, I will attest for 99.9% of all the population of flyers out there and operators is that we don't do stupid stuff. We may do some cool stuff or some relatively risky stuff, but at the same time, nobody's out there seeking to hurt people or property. It's just, looking for that shot. It's like skateboarding, right? We're not, people aren't I'm not a skateboarder, but people aren't out there really trying to damage things or hurt people. They're just trying to, enjoy life and have fun. So, um, and I just want to point out, Meat dropped an article on a drone shooting. Has anybody to this point heard of the FAA prosecuting the shooting down of a drone?
I've heard a lot of fighting about it, but no, I haven't seen it been prosecuted.
I know.
Not the. I'm trying to think if it was the FAA.
I know there were some currently going through, but none decisions.
Yeah.
that
I
I'm
remember one
curious
case from
when.
like 6 or 8 months ago, but I don't
Okay.
know.
Yeah, that was one where
results.
it was a sheriff's. I mean, it was a pretty cut and dry case where someone shot down a sheriff's drone. It was like, are you kidding?
Well, I'm just curious when, I mean, not that I hope it doesn't
Yeah.
become an issue, but I mean, here's the thing: is when are they going to stand up and enforce their rules? I mean, as we're going to start having to push. I mean, we're going to
well-
have to start putting remote ID on our drones, and that's going to make us very apparent to the general public who may not appreciate drones. It's going to be a problem. So
I think I think
Alert from
remote ID will
calendar.
exacerbate the current
Replace
situation
for
where we
nice
have
filter.
of, drone pilots being assaulted.
mhm.
Yeah.
Well, the one
I mean,
bit
it's happening now.
the one side that there still is though is the FAA is not very good at communicating out to the general public about stuff. So maybe those people won't even know remote ID exists and know to look for it. But
I mean,
that's not the greatest chance, but it's still
no, I
something.
mean,
Well,
By
the
it-
difference, the realistic, I mean, the world here is that if the local law enforcement gets training on it, and then somebody calls the police about a drone, then they have some kind of
Yeah.
recourse to figure out what's going on. Like that would be where my head would be at. Like,
mhm.
because otherwise, it's not like most people are not going to have any clue about it, how to use it, what the app is, or anything. Like, unless there's some kind of like, unless The View has a segment about like how to install the drone. You know what I mean? Like unless somebody picks up that in like major media. Like you're not going to see that proliferate into people, and instead you're going to see the result of that like come out. So the Karens now have a call to make, and then somebody can follow up on the call instead of just going whatever or showing up at the park and then asking the guy what he's doing or whatever. You know what I mean? Like that's the difference I see. Is if this goes through and there's training and education and there's enforcement by local law enforcement, then there can be a different response when a person calls the same way they normally would.
Yeah, I wonder if
that's to me the change, right?
if this is something we can help the FAA in any way. Like, so this drone was shot down. The FAA does do something about it. Can we amplify that information and get it out there so that more people know that, yes, the FAA did do something about this because an aircraft was shot down,
That's
assuming
kind of
they
what I'm
did
looking
something?
for. That's why I was asking, because I want to know. I want to push that out because, like Meat said, he says, I've definitely heard more than once that people think it's okay to shoot at drones over their property.
You
It's
see that
true.
all the time.
And
Lots of people I know are surprised when I tell them that they can't.
yeah, exactly. So that's a problem. And I want to be like, here, see, somebody got made an example of. Don't be someone. Don't be Bob. Bob got thrown in jail for shooting at a drone. I mean, that kind of thing. So, anywho,
Dan, I think you're on a good point. And I started this, and I try to be generally positive. Struggling with the CBO situation. We hope to be a CBO. We will give it a college try, and we'll help anyone else submitting applications for a CBO in as much as we have a very good understanding of the regulations, not just 44809, but Part 107 as well.
and here's the important part about this, guys, is the AMA has how many documents did you say, Dave? 12?
Yeah, it's a bunch.
Okay, so anybody who's listening, what are the chances that you're going to remember 12 pages worth of rules?
Safety
So,
Oh,
guidelines.
yeah, it's about
yeah.
12
Barely
documents.
remember the 8 bullet points from the 44809.
All right, that's all you're going to remember. And here's the thing is, we want to make it as easy as possible to say, here's the FPVFC's rule set. Go out, have fun, enjoy yourself. And
we want to reflect 44809. This is what the statute is. This is
exactly.
some common sense additions, and outside of guidelines, additional common sense things that can help. Battery knowledge, tips on flying in the cold, propeller safety do not have to be part of pre-flight and post-flight
So are we saying
guidelines. If you don't follow, you're ejected.
we're predicting some headbutting between us and the FAA on the CBO and the safety guidelines?
Yep.
Yep.
I mean, if I'm involved in it, yes.
Yes, I do anticipate that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because we could go two different ways. We could try to do what the AMA did, give them exactly what they want, a million safety guidelines, so we can make some FRIAs. Or we can try to headbutt the FAA and say, no, really, there's no point in these lights for flying at night under these circumstances. We want simpler rules. We want this, this, and this, and we either might not become a CBO or it may take a year.
Right.
Well, I would rather it take some time and make sure it works for the community than anything else. And so, I mean, that's where my head's at. And obviously, I'm just talking off the cuff. We've not discussed this beforehand. But go ahead, Alex.
I was gonna say the one other thing that is dependent on time though is currently the AMA has a monopoly on being a CBO.
Correct.
Yes,
which means that now everyone at this time has to follow the AMA guidelines if they're flying recreationally, since they have to follow a CBO set of guidelines. So all recreational flights at this moment have to be under AMA for the time being.
So technically that started today.
Yes, as soon as they got their approval.
So, yeah, I mean, I agree with that, Alex. We are on a time crunch, but again, at the same time, we want to make sure it's right for the community.
So what really happened was lots and lots more people are flying against the rules or not in accordance with the current regulations. Way more mass non-compliance starting today.
Okay.
So to Meat's point, where it says, I think fighting to keep the rules minimal and sensible is more important than making FRIAs right away. Certainly from our position, in as much as FRIAs are not required tomorrow afternoon, that's a sensible view. And as Josh said, we've not had an opportunity to huddle as a team on this and hash it out. But I think that's the sense of it, is that we want to try to achieve a result that is not simply, oh, let's just write up a book and then everyone will be happy and it'll be incomprehensible and no one will follow it. That's not where we want to have this end up.
Yeah.
So nothing from the.
Yeah, so I mean that's the thing is like I would like to say, the FAA press federal charges, right? Not just state and local. Like I mean, firing a gun in, a populated area is in most places, in fact, I think all places, a local crime. But I just want to see, so and so went to federal jail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to KBS Ken's point, personally don't see what more, if anything, needs to be added to 44809. Would like night flight with some rules probably makes some sense. Something to allow operations over people, and certainly limited BB loss are things that we really would love to see an augmented or added 44809.
I think he's talking in terms of rules for CBO, like
Our
in terms
safety
of
guidelines
safety
shouldn't go in above
guidelines,
and
yeah.
beyond
We'll be
those
busy.
regulations.
This is going to be a busy time.
So, oh, did we lose Dave again? No.
His video did freeze for a while.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Alex, you got anything for us real quick?
Not that I can recall off the top of my head.
Bye, Dave.
His time's up.
Blunty, you got anything fun?
Nope.
All right, Dan? anything
No,
to
I
wrap
just
this up?
wanted to make sure we talked about the CBO stuff and that our current status is we haven't heard anything from the FAA. Dave even checked his spam folder. There was nothing there.
Check drone zone yet?
And as soon as we
Current-
find out something, I'm sure we'll post it in Discord and on our Facebook.
Current status is no status. Right.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah, somebody's thinking about it, right? So we're taking up space in somebody's head.
We're
so
somewhere
there you go.
between rubber stamp and easy, and so obviously not in compliance that they just rejected it immediately. Right? We're somewhere in
didn't bother
between
to
that.
send the email.
Yeah. I'm thinking this is like a population, or populate the article. Oh, check, and it fills in a form.
Right.
We'll see.
All right, guys. Thank you for joining us tonight. Great discussion. Appreciate the chat. Everybody was super involved, and especially Meat. Always going to shout out Meat because he's always got something to say, and we love it. So, we will be back. Goodness, where are we at here?
I think we'll be back in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Because we're
the
going to
30th, so-
skip Thanksgiving, which was not one of our weeks anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I think we'll be good. So we'll see you guys in 2 weeks, and
hopefully we're a CBO by then.
yeah, hey, there you go.
Maybe.
We'll let
Get
you
that.
know.
Or maybe they'll wait until December 30th because they really like that date.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, this day of the year.
All right, guys, take it easy. Have a great night.
All
See
right.
ya.
Thank you.
Bye.